Welcome back, everybody. We've got another top five spotlight series for Terok Nor week this week. So today I've got as my guest the Terok Nor expert. We've got Michael Shea, known as the Prefect now, aka Scrain Ducat. So, Michael, thank you so much for taking the time tonight to come on and tell us about your top five Terok Nor cards. And I'm going to share my screen, and remember to press the yes button when I share my screen. So I have all of his cards. There we are. We've got our, so your first card on your list you've got for us today is
Ruling Council. Yeah. So let me start by, before I jump into the cards, I want to start by thanking you for the opportunity to speak to the players. And I love these spotlight weeks. I think they're a great idea. I also just very, very quickly wanted to take the time to say to all of our LGBTQ players out there, happy Pride Month, anniversary of the Stonewall riots, June 28th, 1969 through July 1st, 1969, being celebrated all month. So to those of you out there for whom this month is special, I hope it's a happy one. Now,
I'll jump in. Can I jump in there? Because that does remind me.
Of course.
I totally screwed up and misread the calendar. I promised myself I wouldn't schedule a tournament at the same day as the Chicago Pride Parade, because I almost always do, because it's always the last Sunday of June. And gosh darn it, Continentals, day 2 of 2E Continentals is the same day as the Pride Parade. So that's going to make getting around Chicago a little dicey for those of you all who are coming out for that.
And for those of you that do show up, if I don't make day 2, I'll be heading out to the parade. So you're welcome to come along with me and drown your sorrows in the festivities. And there are sure to be some. So.
Yes, Pride Parade, they run extra trains on the commuter rail and all across the public transit so people can get to the Pride Parade, which I'm sure is rather astonishing for the folks in Boys Town who were living there, 25 or 30 years ago, and like, wait, all these people are coming out now? Okay, yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. Hey, the businesses love it, I'm sure. And it's a festive atmosphere.
It is.
So hopefully we'll see all of you there, out there watching. We hope to see you in Chicago. I hope to be there as well. So some intro on Terok Nor. As I'm sure anyone who knows me or is even familiar with me probably is aware, it is my favorite faction. It comes from my favorite story arc in my favorite series for Trek, Deep Space Nine, and the arc where from season 5 to season 6, the Cardassian Dominion Alliance liberates Terok Nor from the Federation and the Bajoran usurpers. So it's a great series of 5 or 6 episodes. If it's been a long time since you've watched it, I'd certainly recommend giving it a look. Some fantastic acting, some fantastic writing, and some great battle scenes, which DS9 did very well. So Terok Nor as a faction has come a long way since the days of Call to Arms and peak performance. And yet some of the best cards for this faction are cards that have been around for a long time. There are a few different builds available to the Terok Nor player. For example, Nathan Miracle, who is a highly skilled and innovative player, won 26 American Nationals with a Terok Nor Dissident deck that benefited immensely from the element of surprise and a correct, if lucky, read of the meta. I've also had luck with Terok Nor battle decks, and in time we will see if versions of Wayun Dukat Neprim from 0 Hour and far beyond the stars that support that build make it a contender. But for the purposes of this top 5, I'd like to focus on the affiliation's current dominant build, which is Dilemma Mill. Now, a player can choose to go all in on this build or mill just enough to get the benefit of some of the cards I'll be covering. So I'll try to cover both options as best I can. And as Maggie correctly previewed, Ruling Council is the first card I'd like to discuss today, or for this spotlight. With Ruling Council, the Terok Nor player that commands 3 unstopped, non-dissident Terok Nor personnel can, after a failed attempt, unstop each of his or her stopped Terok Nor personnel. This card is so good for the build, it's almost too good. In fact, its previous original incarnation also gave the Terok Nor player the option of scoring 10 points. And a few of these played in a row could mean the difference between a 2-mission win and a 3-mission win. But even if in its present form, and I think it's more balanced this way, this interrupt is crucial. The Terok Nor player typically thinks long and hard before omitting this card from his or her deck. And the image that Art chose for the card is just fantastic. So that takes me to Dukat, Cardassian Representative. Now, this card is affectionately referred to as Lawnmower Dukat. This misunderstood liberator gives Terok Nor an incredible degree of control and defense. First, when he's played, he can download a Dominion card or a copy of Ruling Council. This ability can really grease the skids of a draw deck that tends to be on the heftier side. But what he's most known for and most feared for by opponents is the ability to destroy events for the price of a discard. It's a very Cardassian feeling ability, and if you're running a couple of copies of Back to Basics in your dilemma pile, the cost of the ability is mitigated substantially. His skills also provide an easy completion for missions like Deliver Prisoners and help defend against biogenic Strange New Worlds lockout combos. So this card really has got it all, so much so that other perfectly well-designed alternatives of Dukat tend to get crowded out in a Terok Nor build. I actually find myself wondering if this card, if pitched today, would even get made, because it very nearly paints designers into a corner. It's just so good. Now,
yeah, I mean, I've played against him before, and yeah, that is being able to just pay a very low cost to destroy an event is, even though he costs 4, but he's got hefty skill, the right skills for a Dukat, and it is just sort of pretty awful to watch all your events just go blah.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, when I've traveled to higher level events and have played players with significant degrees of skill, if I bring a Terok Nor deck to the event, I am told by those players afterwards that just seeing Dukat, Cardassian Representative, hit the table changes the way they play. So that's a powerful card. Now, moving on to the Dominion representative of the Ruling Council is Weyoun, Dominion representative. And I'm actually going to talk about 2 cards here, this card and Kevin, Pragmatic Captor. That comes from a more recent set. Yes, I'm cheating here. These are 2 cards, but together they pack an incredible punch. So let's look at Weyoun first. Weyoun allows you to banish an opponent's personnel to the bottom of his or her owner's deck by putting himself on the bottom of your deck. Now, Kevin imprisons up to 3 copies of an opponent's personnel in your brig by performing what is essentially a prisoner exchange. Now, full disclosure here, I helped design Kevin. But I am of the opinion that even if Kevin gets errated as is currently proposed, and you'll want to check the boards for discussion about this, even if he gets errated as proposed to be a little more balanced, these 2 cards working together can perfectly complement a skill trackers pile and get rid of those pesky original thinkers and honorable commanders. And Weyoun lets you get a copy of Ruling Council or a Cardassian card. So if you need that all-important Dukat Cardassian representative to help face off against an opponent's event-heavy deck, Weyoun's your guy. And Kevin works together with Ramataclan Steadfast Sentinel to provide even more defensive control by allowing you to selectively give an opponent's captive you have in your brig back in order to cancel out an event or an interrupt. So again, 2 very powerful cards when working together really provide the Terok Nor player with a degree of defense while they get their offense up and running. Also providing some valuable skills for typical missions selected by this faction.
Excellent, excellent. So let's see. Oh, I was trying to grab the Tenactilar. Our page for the Tenactilar has run into a snag with the apostrophe trouble the website's
Oh yeah, you should just be able to scroll down and you'll find it. If you go back to any Weiyun, you should be able to, the Weiyun from 0 Hour. I think you can find it.
I've got it.
Yep, there you go. So that brings us to sort of one of the workhorses of the fleet or certainly the workhorse of the fleet for the Terok Nor player, the Tenactilar Vanguard of the Occupation. This ship is the backbone of the typical Terok Nor build. For a cost 7, this ship is relatively easy to staff for its 999 stats. It has pumpable range up to +3 and allows you to, for unique Cardassians aboard, and allows you to score 10 bonus points when a unique Cardassian personnel aboard uses a skill to complete your Cardassian mission. So what's not to love? No matter what iteration of Terok Nor build I'm using, whether it's battle or dissidence with a few Dominion personnel splashed in for skills and attributes, or any iteration of a mill build, even an old-fashioned speed solver if I'm playing in a oh god, we were just talking about the format, slipstream event. And Terok Nor is great for slipstream, by the way, with ruling council, which we previously discussed. No matter what the iteration of a Terok Nor build, I usually find myself playing with copies of this ship in it.
Yeah, I've been recently playing a Dominion deck, just a straight Dominion deck that's got the Dominion battleship in it, and being able to have 12 range is just like I feel like I am the god when I've got 12 range.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and especially with Terok Nor as a headquarters having a span of only 1, which is typical for Mouth of the Wormhole, you can zip around and do multiple attempts in a single turn, and that makes a huge difference. I mean, this ship is really so good that other well-designed ships for the faction, like the Subek just don't often see the kind of play that a similar ship would in a different faction. So now we'll move on to Undermined Defenses, which is the next card in my list. Now, this card is the card that made Tenuous Alliance playable. This is the card that helped pull the faction together and give them a unique, distinct theme. It needs other cards to help it kick off, like War of Attrition or Tenuous Alliance or Kieran Reese Grudging Ally. But once you can trigger this card's text, the payoff is huge. So for 0 costs, this event plays in your core. And if you've got, or if any of your opponents have 10 or more dilemmas removed from the game, you can exclude each of your Terok Nor icon personnel from random selections while facing dilemmas. Now, against the right pile, Ace Tragic Turn Kill pile, for example, or a Chula pile, the effect on an opponent's ability to stop you at a mission is just devastating. As a matter of fact, I have sat down against kill piles or other random selection heavy piles and completed 2 or 3 missions in a single turn with the help of this card combined with the enhanced range on the Tenactilar. And with cards like Remedicon Steadfast Sentinel, which I discussed a little bit earlier, although it's not on my top 5 list, that guy can be used if you have captives to help you protect this event from destruction. So in the right build, this is really a capstone card.
Yeah, Phil was playing this in the Hall of Fame format at Monasters, and my dilemma pile was very random selection heavy, and it was just like, no. Well, I can't use that dilemma. I can't use that dilemma. Yeah, it was brutal. Absolutely brutal.
I've won tournaments thanks to this card. Absolutely. And with that, I'll cover just a few honorable mentions. We've got Damar, Useful Adjutant. He's originally from Call to Arms. He's helped me complete a number of missions by subtracting 1 from the number of counters an opponent can spend on dilemmas. I've won a number of games with the "you may draw 0 to spend 1" effect that this card can provide. Untapped Influence. In a mill deck, whether or not you're using undermined defenses, in other words, whether or not you're going all in on the mill mechanic, this interrupt, which allows you to add a needed skill or pump an attribute based on an opponent's removed dilemmas, can be a game changer, especially if you're facing the dreaded doubler pile that's making the rounds currently. And if you're not familiar with what the doubler pile is, go on the forums. There's discussions about it. It essentially it can be a nasty pile if you're tracking skills. And Wayun and Kevin, who I talked about earlier, make that dilemma pile absolutely amazing. If you're lucky enough to have an opponent who's light on transporters or archaeology, which, let's face it, a lot of bills can be. Now, Nassim following orders. He's a Bajoran deputy from that arc I mentioned earlier, the Terok Nor occupation arc. He lets you protect a key personnel, say a personnel with the needed treachery after facing an issue of trust at your Krasari rendezvous. And he's got medical, which is in short supply for a Terok Nor build. So this, and with a strength of 6, since most Terok Nor missions in most builds currently rely on strength missions, not to be overlooked. Finally, Odo Bajoran representative, rounding out the peak performance triumvirate. This incarnation of Odo can be expensive if his text is activated, so it'll cost you 7. But for that, you get 5 points, a ruling council or an equipment card, and a Terok Nor card. Now, that is not too shabby indeed. And with that, that includes my pick for the top 5 in quotes, cards for Terok Nor.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. That was really fun. You definitely have a passion for the faction, and things have gotten so much better with Terok Nor. Actually, I played Terok Nor at the IDIC draft tournament at Worlds last year because they the pool that Sean put together had Terok Nor in there, and I'm like, I'm looking at all these, I'm getting a bunch of guys, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll play Mouth of the Wormhole. Yeah. And it was great. And it was just,
Right.
it was just random jobbers for the most part. I think I didn't get Odo Dominion representative. I don't know if that's in the pool or not, but I did get an Odo, and it was just like, yes, I will play this. This is fantastic. And yeah, that one cost on the mouth, or the one range on the Mouth of the Wormhole is just clutch. That was
Absolutely.
If you're going back and quantum leap fixing stuff, that was a bad move on Decipher's part to give Mouth of the Wormhole a range of 1. When all the other HQs have range of 2, but I guess we'll just live with that for right now.
I'm happy to live with it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Michael Shea. I'm looking forward, hoping you're going to make it out to Continentals at the end of the month. Yeah, shameless plug for Continentals, North American Continentals in Chicago, June 21st through the 24th. So hope people will be able to come out for that. Michael is planning on coming, so maybe you'll see a Terok Nor deck live and in action there. All right, so thanks so much, Michael.
Anything could happen. Anything could happen.
And we will see you guys next time on Top 5, I believe is Vidian Week. So stick around.